And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 28-year talk radio host, and I come to you live from my home in Southern California every single Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. This show is about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about humanity. It's about passion. It's about service. It's about becoming and being your best you in this big, beautiful world, and then inspiring others to do the same. And every week on the show, it may be my show, but it's always, without a doubt and forever, your experience. My guest today was psychic when psychic wasn't cool. She was probably the first television psychic that I ever saw. And then I hunted her down and asked her to do my radio show. And now she's done many shows and many encounters and friendship later, many years later. She was on Sightings. She was on Unexplained Mysteries, on Sally Jesse Raphael, and really opened the floodgates for all the many psychics that we see on television today. Please welcome to the show, the most wonderful Echo Bodine is here. How are you, my friend? It's good to see you.
Hi, honey. God, it's good to be here.
And that's true, right? I mean, what was it like to be a television psychic in the 80s and the 90s when now you can't turn on a television channel without hitting 5 psychics? But back then, that was a thing that was not something that we all in this country talked about. We're a very predominantly Christian country, right? A country that is descendant of those lovely, scary Puritan people. And the idea that a psychic would be on television talking about mediumship work, psychic work, finding missing people, that was rare, right?
Yes, it was, honey. Yes, it was. Oh my God, just to think back to all of that, I'm glad I was young when it all started, because I had a lot of enthusiasm at the time. And, it took me a while really to just accept that this is what I was here to do. And I did, looking back, I did have a lot of courage. I kept saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And God, honey, I felt such a drive inside to help people understand what these gifts are. And so, it's been quite a journey, to say the least.
So when you did Sightings, what was that like? Because when I was a kid, there was In Search Of, right? And before there was In Search Of, there was nothing. And then there was Sightings. And then after Sightings, other shows started trickling down underneath Sightings. So when you were doing Sightings, did the producer or director or whoever was prompting you with the questions for you to answer, did they even know what to ask? Because at that time, there was a very limited scope of what a psychic medium was and did, right?
God, you're right, honey. Gosh, what did they ask back then?
Right? Did you have to kind of prompt them through what you did and sort of explain to them what it was like to be a psychic? Because now I would imagine, young ones today, producers and directors, they watch TikTok, they go watch an episode of Long Island Medium, they go and enjoy our mutual friend Chip Coffee on something, and then they know what it is because they've already seen it. But there was really no reference for what you did. And for a lot of the things on Sightings, right, there was really no reference for a lot of the subjects they were covering. So I can imagine that was a really interesting to be a psychic pioneer, which is what I consider you to be.
Yeah, honey, I guess you're right. It's such a good question. What did they ask me? People always ask, how did you get into this?
Sure.
there's that story. Um, and I, and I'm just sitting here trying to think, have the questions changed over the years?
It's still what they ask right out the gate, right? How'd you
That's,
get into this? Why do
yeah,
you do this? Did you ever not believe it was real? I mean, so the same things they ask us now, right?
yep, the same things. And um, the the skeptics have gotten less and less. I don't
Mm,
give that anymore. I think it's because now I just hand it right back to them and remind them to read Corinthians, where it talks about the gift of prophecy, and they kind of stop in their tracks. They don't know what to say to that.
yeah.
God, honey, I just today somebody sent me a thing about a psychic in Minnesota who um, conned a lot of people out of a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um, it's $100,000 out of. I I don't.
Sweetie, you're cutting out on me really bad. Could I get you to go out and come back in and I'll just fill time while you do that?
Yeah, honey, I can do
All
that.
right.
All right,
Yay.
all right. Go out
Okay.
and come back in.
It's
Okay.
easier said than done. There she goes. Oh, she does it faster than me. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to tell that story. Oh, she's back.
Wait, but I I don't know if this is going to be any better.
Well,
I
so
didn't.
far it's okay. So let's
Okay.
so far it's good. So you were telling a story about a psychic that conned a bunch of people.
Yeah, honey. And I don't know if she is truly a psychic, like really has psychic abilities, or if she's a fortune teller. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because, I find it hard to believe that somebody that's truly gifted would
Mm,
fraud people out of $100,000.
mm.
What? So, and I've never heard of this psychic myself. So, I don't know. I would guess in every profession there's people
Sure.
who give it a bad name.
I think, I always tell my friends when they say, "Oh, my knee hurts, I'm going to go see a doctor." I say, "Prepare to be told you're going to have knee surgery," because I, to this day, do not know a single person, including me, that's ever gone to a knee doctor that some kind of surgery wasn't recommended. And every single person who sprains or pulls something doesn't need to have a surgery. So I think in every profession, right, there are
Mhm.
people who will load up the charges for what you need. I mean, you go
Yes.
to the car wash and you say, "I just want the what used to be the $5 car wash, right, is now the $30 car wash."
Yes.
And then suddenly it's, do you want your engine steam cleaned? Do you want
Yeah.
this done to your tires? And they're trying to sell you a $200 package. I think we see a lot of that with psychics. And it's hard for us, I think,
Yeah.
because like doctors, like nurses, this is a business and we do collect a paycheck.
Yeah. We do.
So
We do.
we can't do it always for free
No.
because we need to be able to take care of ourselves so we can take care of other people.
Yeah.
But there is a limit, right? I mean, I've had clients tell me, "Oh, I went to this person and I told them I was trying to get my girlfriend back, and I gave them $100,000." I'm like, "Whoa, is any
Oh.
girlfriend worth getting? I mean, if she was kidnapped, maybe, but is any other girlfriend worth $100,000? I mean, that's a lot." And then that didn't work, so then this person went to a different person who then charged them $50,000.
Oh no.
So I think there is that level of con
Oh.
artists that happens, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's
Yes.
hard because here we do something that people don't really understand. We do something that is something that can't be proven,
Yes.
and so we are already, people are suspicious about that, and then the ones out there that do the not great stuff just make it worse,
I
right? and
know.
and as
Yeah.
far as their abilities, this is going to be very controversial, but I'm going to say it to you.
Yeah.
A narcissist, a
Okay. Yeah.
manipulator, a
Okay. Yeah.
person who cons people for whatever it is they want, right?
Yep.
Money, objects, power, sex, whatever it is. They
Yep.
have to have a certain amount of intuitive ability to
Yep.
move energy in
True.
order to con people.
True. Yeah.
So our gifts and their gifts are very similar,
Yeah.
except they come from a different place because our gifts come from the light and they're working in darkness.
Yep.
So it's
You're right.
hard for people sometimes to understand the difference in a good healer and somebody who's just manipulating them for money, because our gifts work the same way. I mean, if narcissists didn't have a little bit of what my mama called sixth sense coyote smarts, they wouldn't be able to manipulate people the way they do.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it's trying to convince people sometimes, well, maybe that's somebody that's not good, but I'm trying to do good. And I think there's some signs of that you can always tell, the compiling of the charges out of nowhere. Now this costs this, and now this costs this, and you need 50 more of these. And also, I think the telling you not to talk to anybody else. I hear that a lot. My psychic, my therapist, my whoever it is told me I shouldn't be talking to you. I shouldn't be going to the massage therapist. I shouldn't be doing the breath work. And I'm always like,
What?
You know what? When someone tells you not to see anybody but them, there's a problem. Because I tell my clients, see as many psychics, healers, get work done, join a drum circle, get a psychiatrist, whatever you need. Do whatever helps to heal you. Do you feel that way too? Like it takes a village to heal someone, right, Echo?
Oh, God, yes, honey. Yes. I would never say to anybody, just stick with me.
Right.
No,
right.
No, I can't. I mean, that makes me laugh. I can't believe somebody. But, honey, you know what? I haven't met any psychics that do that, but I've had clients who have been to psychics like that and given thousands of dollars for protection.
Right.
What a bunch of crap.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's
drives me nuts.
It's like when the guy from the mafia comes to your restaurant and says, pay me $20,000 a week for protection. It's actually protection from that guy. And I think it's the same thing with psychics in that way, right? The protection they're offering you is protection from their own bad juju. And I also think when you're look, I'm not saying spell work is bad. I do some spell work, only positive things to raise the vibration of things and to put love into things. But when someone's coming and telling you, if you like this guy and you want his wife to fall down a well, come to me and we'll do some spell work. I'm like, no. You don't even want to touch that, because all of that bad just comes back at you, right?
Yes.
And it just encourages people to act on their vengeful thoughts. Look, we all have vengeful thoughts.
Yeah.
You show me a person and I'll show you somebody that they wish would fall down a well, me included. But acting on that, or going to someone who's putting deliberate bad mojo on your behalf onto someone, I'm not saying they're powerful enough to make someone fall down a well.
Yeah.
But it's not about the end result. It's about the intention, right? Because thoughts are things.
Yep.
And if you are constantly focusing on someone's harm and paying someone to do it for you, then there's going to be reverberations. And it's just not how we walk in the light. And I understand people get confused and don't know the rules. Yeah. But I think it's up to us as healers to help to provide the rules and let them know, what flies with spirit and what doesn't. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, honey, I do. I mean, you know what I have to say? I have met a couple of people who, oh my gosh, this was, how many years ago when Trump was elected. And this lady told me that she belonged to a group of women who were, she didn't call it a spell. She didn't call it a curse, but she said that they are praying heavily every week that something causes him to die.
Oh, I've heard about those groups too. Yeah.
Okay. And I said to her, okay, so now let me just ask you a question. Have you heard about the law of karma? And she said, honey, she said to me, oh no, we have figured out a way to circumvent.
Oh, okay. Karma. God. Sure.
Yeah.
We figured out how to circumvent God.
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So I said, oh, really? Wow. Well, I said, you know what? I'd still be watching out for karma if I were you.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, you can't do that kind of stuff to people.
Yeah.
And I said, you're interfering with their life, their karma. That you, I said, oh my God, I can't even believe that you're telling me that you're doing this.
Yeah.
And she just thought, what's the big deal? It's no big deal.
Right. Well, don't you think, I mean, if you don't like, let's say a politician, because that's the
Yeah.
example here, right? Then pray for whatever bad deeds you think they've done to get
Yeah.
exposed,
Okay.
or
Yep.
pray for them to see the light and become
Yeah.
a kinder and nicer person.
Very
But
nice.
to pray for something to happen to them,
Yeah, I know.
which in all honesty, if it did, would just martyr them and make the situation worse.
Good point.
I mean, do you know what I mean? I mean, if you
Yes.
prayed for Charles Manson to get stabbed in prison, then all that would happen is all the people who questioned Charles Manson's guilt would say, see, he was innocent, and look
Yeah.
what everyone did to him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pray that the truth is revealed. Pray that
Yes.
somebody changes their ways. But just to pray that somebody will die is, I mean, to think that's okay. But I think, and I'm going to say this, and I don't know if you agree with me, but here we go.
Here
We're
we
now
go.
going to become closer friends because I'm going to ask you this. Praying that someone dies and claiming you're circumventing God, source, to me basically means you're going to the dark side to
Yeah.
tap into the darkness of the universe,
You're right.
which
honey.
honestly doesn't really have anything to do with the light.
Yeah.
And you're circumventing the light by doing dark hand magic and
Yes.
focusing on the darkness. And
Yes. You're right.
you know, the one thing, I mean, all religions, there are things I believe and things I don't. We're in an interfaith, so I
Yeah.
consider I like a little bit of everything. One of the things I've always had a problem with Christianity was this idea that, you know, God loved Satan, but then Satan couldn't be a good enough henchman, so then he said, bye-bye God, and went to hell. And even though we fear Satan and we talk about Satan all the time, and everything in Christianity is beware of the devil, the truth is the devil really has no power over God because it's all about God, and the devil's just sort of a living hemorrhoid with a pitchfork. Well, to me that doesn't really make sense, and I don't mean to freak anybody out, and I don't mean to sound cryptic, but there is a balance in the universe. It's like the yin yang, right? There is
Yeah.
dark and there is light. Where
Yeah.
the dark is, the light can't be. Where the light is, the dark can't be.
Yeah.
If the dark didn't really matter and really was just sort of this misbehaved child of the light, then why would we fear it? If it wouldn't even be a real thing, it would
Right.
just be, it would like be like fearing ants in your house that you could spray for at any time. So I think that maybe that fable is to, one, scare people into thinking, oh, Satan, and secondly, into making people think, well, Satan's not really anything when it comes down to it, which doesn't make any sense because why are we fearing it? Because I think for a lot of people, the idea that there is darkness in the world
Mm-hmm.
is very terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But just to know it exists, I think makes everything make more sense and just encourages you more to build up your quotient of light, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, do you
Yes.
believe in that? Do you believe there is actual darkness? It's not just a little guy with a pitchfork?
Okay, first of all, I don't believe in a little guy with a pitchfork. But secondly, Sheena, this, God, honey, this was maybe 3 months ago. I was doing a class, and the angel that was working with me at the time said, Echo, how did she say that? She said, there is no man with a pitchfork. She said, the evil comes from mankind's will.
Right.
Will. Our will. Our will creates the negativity.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not some guy with a pitchfork and he's all
Right.
dressed in red and looks ridiculous.
Right.
And you know what? When she said that, man, it was like somebody smacked me between the eyes, because that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's us. It's us that's creating this. It's the bullshit egos that's creating this crazy stuff. And so, you know, I think if people would just realize it's their own will, their own egos, their need for power, their need for whatever. That's what's creating all this. Look at that. Look at what's his name? Putin right now.
Oh, right. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect
He
example.
needs a pitchfork.
Yeah, he does.
He's
honey.
everything but the pitchfork.
Yes.
No, I agree. And it's interesting because I interviewed Barry Fitzgerald, who was on Ghost Hunters a few months ago here. And he's got this new book out where he talks about this idea that darkness, the darkness of the human spirit that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
actually becomes a thing. It becomes an energy
Okay.
in and
Yeah.
of itself.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's something now that I've always believed. When those folks pass, they don't go to heaven and God says, and then everybody laughs and has a beer. They literally go to a place that is dark, not hell where they're being tortured on the rack and poked with a pitchfork, but literally a place where their darkness compounds.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is the actual darkness of the universe created by dark energy. Now, I think that's a wonderful theory. It's a little tiny bit different than what I believe. I believe kind of the opposite, that the dark and the light exist in their ethereal places.
Yeah.
And some folks come here from the dark and some come here from the light, and you go back to whence you came. I don't think everybody on the earth plays for the same team.
No.
And I don't think some people just had a bad childhood, because there's a lot of people who had really bad childhoods and they're not torturing people or animals, or you just saw a little bit of the cat in the camera. Did you want to see the cat's cheek as part of the show?
Yes, of course.
God, he's cute. It's hard to be mad at him because he's so damn cute.
Yeah.
It's, I do believe that sometimes that there is actually a place. I'll tell you an interesting story that I talk about on the air sometimes. So my dad was very narcissistic, very much a narcissist, and never really did anything for anybody but himself, was terrible to us, didn't really have any friends. I mean, he just almost kind of existed separate from the world.
Oh, okay.
Had no spirituality, was a lapsed Catholic. I always tell the story that when I was a kid, we had a sectional sofa that was like this. And then it was here. And then my mom's chair was here. And the TV was like here. And we would sit there. And my dad's chair was back behind the couch. And he would sit with the light pulled over it, staring at a book and not even talk to us all night long. So when he died, he had brain cancer. And he went into sort of this kind of almost childlike fugue state in the couple of months before he passed. And I went to go see him once at the nursing home because he kept punching people and making roommates cry. And I believe it was because he didn't remember my mom. So for the first time in his life, he didn't have her giant, warm, light energy to kind of keep the dragon at bay, right? So he was just on a spree at this nursing home, and they were like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I said to him, he was just talking to himself, and he didn't put good sentences together. He knew his first name, but he couldn't read and he couldn't write because he had so much of his brain taken out. And he said to me, "Let me ask you something." Lucid as can be, out of the blue, right? It was like, "Let me ask you something." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "So they're these dark things. They're big and they have wings, and they keep telling me I belong with them." And I said, okay.
God.
And he said, "But then there are these other things, and they're big and they're blue, and they look like they would be like white hot, but when you touch them, they're cool. And they keep saying, I don't have to listen to those things, and I can make the decision to go where I want. What do you think I should do?" And I didn't know what to say. I mean, here's a man I barely spoke to in my whole life, even though he lived in my house. He didn't particularly like me or anyone else. He had no religion. I mean, if you ever tried to bring up spirituality with him, he would just get angry and start screaming at you about priests. And now he's asking me, like, where should I go?
God.
And he's describing these things. Which is interesting because when people talk about angelics, right, we have the folkloric idea that angels are white. But when people talk about angelics and seeing them at home and coming back during near-death experiences, we talk about them being almost like a bluish white, like an LED light, right? That's supposedly white but glows kind of blue.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to tell him. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, 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 no. And then he was back there again. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know what's going on. And I came home and I told my
Whoa.
mom, and she was so freaked out. I mean, they weren't close, but still, she said, oh my God, did he murder someone and we don't know? And I said, maybe there are times where murder is justifiable. Somebody murders your child, maybe
Yeah.
it's justified to murder them. But
Yeah.
maybe the true idea of darkness is to be so selfish that in your whole life you've never done anything except for yourself.
God.
Isn't that the most weirdest story?
Yes.
Maybe you don't have to be. Now, if you're murdering just for fun, that's a whole different thing. If you're hurting people or animals just to do it, that's your own
Oh.
selfishness again. But maybe part of being part of the darkness is just you've never done a human kindness in your life.
God, honey, what kind of
And
an existence? Ick.
I know, right? Miserable to be him. I can't tell you, I'm now living in my childhood home, fixing it up and deciding if I'm going to live back and forth or what I'm going to do with this thing.
Okay.
Up until 2 months ago, I never spent a night alone in this house. He died. My mom died 4 years later. I took care of her here when she was dying, or didn't know she was dying, but when she got sick and couldn't walk. The difference in the energy in this house with him being gone for 10 years, it's 10 years, June 15th, unbelievable.
Oh,
I never particularly liked this house. I always thought this house was a little dark and creepy, to tell you the truth, and I was not really looking forward to living here while I fixed it up. But his energy seems to have moved on, and I'm realizing a lot of what I thought was this house was actually his energy and whatever he carried with him, right? So, Echo, have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen, because you're such a visceral medium, right? Have you ever seen somebody who carried dark beings with them?
Wow, honey. God.
I know. The stories just keep on a coming, my friend. Stick with me.
I'm right here, girl. I'm right here. Let's see. Geez, have I ever seen anything like that? I don't, honey. I don't think so. I don't think I have.
You never tapped into a person and seen that they had maybe a little something that was influencing them?
Oh, yeah, that. Yes, I've seen that. Where I see that is with alcoholics. There's spirit standing outside just waiting for them to start drinking, and then whoop, I've seen the spirit go in, and then when the person's completely intoxicated, spirit comes back out. I've seen that. But honey, I haven't. God, I don't even know if I've been around somebody as negative as how your dad sounds.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was, putting a guinea pig in the microwave. He never hit me. I wasn't molested. I mean, he didn't lock me in a closet, although maybe he would have locked me in a closet had my mother not been the stronger of the two. There was just, my mom called him the turd in the punch bowl. She said, like any party, he could ruin just with his energy. And there was just
oh my God,
a darkness that he carried around with him, a negativity with him. And I have known a couple people in my life like that since, not in an intimate family situation, but I have known people and then moved out of their lives when I realized that they were like that. But it's interesting to me how whatever those things were, with the dark things with the wings, right? Yeah. They just assumed that he belonged with them. And I think my mother, who always considered him to be just a negative, draining pain in the ass, I think when she heard that story, she realized that there was some real stuff going on in there. Yeah. And I think it made her realize maybe like wow, what have I lived with kind of a thing. Yeah. And what would he have been if she hadn't been so strong that, and I tell this story because people are like, why do you tell these stories and air your dirty family laundry? I tell these stories because I know from my clients, and you probably do too from yours, that a lot of people in the world are living with someone like that in their family. They're their spouse, they're their child, they're a sibling, they're a friend, they're their boss, they're a coworker. They're a spouse of a friend, and they don't know how to get out of the situation with this person who's a drain. So I tell the story because I think that you and I, as light workers, everything we talk about in our own lives is going to help somebody. And that's why I'm honest about it, and can tell the story when I teach and joke around and tell it in a funny way so it doesn't scare the shit out of people. But maybe that's what darkness is. It's just not participating in working with everyone human, with the one human family to make the world a more beautiful place. It's taking yourself out of that game.
What makes me curious is, what were his parents like? Why was he like that?
Not like that, and the siblings either. As a matter of fact, when my mom first met him, her brother-in-law, who was his oldest sister's husband, who had lived next door, so had known them his whole life, said, "Trust me, you don't want to marry that guy. I've known that guy since he was 4 years old, and he's always been like that." What? But then my mom got all, "Hey, I'm defensive because somebody said something about," you know what I mean? Like normal people do. So I don't think it had anything to do with anything. I think it was just him. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think it always has to do with the childhood or the trauma. And I think sometimes people like that use the trauma as an excuse to behave badly. Oh, I had a bad childhood. Well, everybody in the world probably had a good and a bad childhood at the same time.
Yeah, honey, I agree.
So
enough,
it's just, and like I said, it wasn't like he hurt anybody or hit anybody or killed anybody. He just lived his entire life only thinking about himself and what worked for him. And that was before we used the term narcissist, right? And now we use that term a lot. We're realizing a lot more how many people are on the narcissist spectrum, and it's some folks, and I say that because empaths like us, we need to support each other and build each other up,
right?
And stay away from that.
Well, so you know what, I would interpret that question he asked you as, because Sheena, what I've really been noticing with people that are, when they pass over, is, do they believe that they are going to hell? Do they believe, is that where all of their faith is, in Satan and hell and
right?
Or do they believe in the light and in God? And I'm not getting religious about this. I'm getting, what do they believe about the light? And so whatever their beliefs are,
right,
that's where they're going to go. That's what their consciousness is going to be. So it's interesting to me that it sounds like your dad had two choices. Okay, Charlie, which way do you want to go? Do you want to go with the dark, or do you want to go with the light? And I just think that's,
and then that part's a mystery after that. Then we don't know after that. That's a mystery.
Yeah, honey, that's so
I know that
interesting.
He was very poltergeisty after he died. He bothered a lot of my medium friends. He threw a lot of things around the house. And one day I just said he used to kick the back of my mom's chair. And one day I just said to him, "Look, I don't know what's going on, but any contract we had, I fulfilled by taking care of you at the end of your life, and we're done. So we're done now, and we're done in the next life, and we're done in the next life, and you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here." And that was it. He went away, and I don't, so many things I can tap into in the ethers. I never find him. I never see him. He's not with my mom, and I don't know where he is. So I wish him well. I hope he gets the help he needs. I hope all souls eventually realize the light is the way to go and come back to the light. But
totally agree.
I can't make them see that, and you can't make them see that. Living people or dead people, right? You can't make somebody choose their own path.
No, honey.
So
what we can do really is just tell them what's available. Honey, I've seen on the other side, and I may have said this the last time we talked, but when I've been able to see the other side in either in readings or doing an out of body experience,
Yeah.
I asked one of the angels that works with me, I asked her about hell, and she said, first of all, God would never create a place where somebody's going to go and burn till
Of course,
eternity.
God
I know.
didn't create that.
I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
okay.
Sure.
And she said, but secondly, she said, there is a place on the other side that it's like a community that looks like hell. And she said, God did not create that. Our consciousness has created that
Sure.
place because so many people believe they're going to hell.
Right.
And so they die, they go to this place. But she says, then after a while, they start asking questions like, really? I mean, really? How long can you stand here and burn for eternity? And she said, when they start asking questions, that's when they start to open their mind to a different consciousness. So,
yeah.
And that makes sense to me, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and also I think that I have seen spirits that, maybe didn't live in the darkness, but did dumb things, didn't learn their
Yes.
life lessons,
Yes.
or were not the nicest people when they were here, fell into addiction, and then through addiction were abusive to other people. And they definitely have shared with me that when you go home, there's an evaluation period where you sit down with spirit and discuss your life.
Yep.
And if you have not done well enough to pass the class, then before you come back and do it again, there's almost a almost like a celestial traffic school, right? Where you have to kind of retrain what it's like before you come back.
Yes.
And then you come back with the idea that this time you're going to learn the lessons and you're going to pass.
Yes.
It's very different than being a soul that is filled with darkness. It's just somebody who can't get it together in this lifetime. And oftentimes when you tap into those souls at home, right, there's a lot of repentance. There's a lot of, they feel very bad for how they acted to people on this planet.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. They feel stupid because they killed themselves and went home early, and then they were like, oh, that wasn't the solution, and now I got to come back.
I know.
Or they drank themselves to death accidentally, or whatever the story is. And hopefully in that retraining period, they get it together. When they come back the next time, they get it right. But they very definitely are always wanting to speak to their loved ones about righting wrongs and healing them from what might have happened at their hands. That's a whole different kind of thing.
It is, honey. Yeah.
But there is a little bit of a rehab for wayward souls.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to put it?
Yes. Yes. Honey, a friend of mine died a year ago. And when she was living, she was a chemical dependency counselor. And she told me, I've since talked to her, asked her how she is, what's she doing. And she said, Echo, there are so many wounded souls over here. And she said, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just continuing on with alcoholic souls that, they'll be coming back, but we need to talk. And she says, so I'm just as busy here as I was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Everyone has a job, right? My mom, who was so focused on children when she was alive, she was a teacher and a child therapist, taught emotionally disturbed kids. She has told me that what she does when she's at home is she receives the souls that come that are young, people, animals, babies, because sometimes when little ones pass, they're very disoriented when they first get there because they haven't had all that time to think about it before they go. And she sort of helps them to get acclimated into what it's like at home and get ready to come back. Because oftentimes those that die very young, right, it's a quick turnaround. They go home, they come back and do it again, especially babies that die, like miscarry or are stillborn, die before they're 6 months. They flip right back and come right back, oftentimes to the same parents.
Yep.
They just go do it again. So that's kind of, she works like in the baby soul nursery. And that's exactly what her soul is about. That doesn't surprise me at all.
It's so sweet. Yes.
I think it's great we all have a job there. I think everyone should have a job here, and I think everyone should have a job there.
Yep.
That makes me totally happy.
Yep. But the good news is the job we have there is one we want and not one we have to do to pay the
Okay.
bills.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the
Okay.
good news. Yeah.
I think the job we have here, Echo, is one we want, you and me.
Well, you and I, yeah. But I think of all the people that are at these crummy jobs because that's all they know how to do. It's like, oh God, how
Right.
sad.
Right.
So
Now,
yeah.
did you ever have real jobs that you hated?
Well, honey, I had, let's see, I was a chemical dependency counselor for 5 minutes
Okay.
and
All right.
realized I can't do this. I cannot do
Okay.
this.
I
Okay.
understand.
I was a secretary and that one was fine for a while. I was a barber for
Nice.
4 years and I really enjoyed it. But I always knew in the back of my mind that this is what I was going to do. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I had, yeah, I
Sounds
had
pretty good.
yeah, I was a car hop. Gosh, remember car hops?
Nice.
I
Yeah.
know, yeah, that was
On
my
roller
very first
skates?
job.
On roller
Yeah.
skates?
Oh God, no, honey. Their food would
Oh.
never have arrived. Um, no, no, honey. But yeah, that was my very, very, very first job. So yeah, no, you know what? And all those jobs, when I look back, they all taught me something that's been important in my career now. So yeah, even if it's, I don't know, how to be nice to a customer, you know?
Don't you think the chemical dependency job that you could only do for 5 minutes, but don't you think that's a lot of what you do as a psychic and a spiritual counselor is you deal
Yeah.
with people that are in a constant place of crisis?
Yes. Yes.
So basically, we're crisis counselors, right? In
Yes,
a way,
we
we're
are.
spiritual
Yeah.
crisis counselors.
Yes. That's
And
right.
are you okay with that? The clients that are very needy that come in the major state of crisis, are you okay with dealing with them?
You know, honey, I was for many, many years, but not anymore. I'm pretty fried on all of it now, really. The people that are just really, you know what? A lot of people right now are wanting to know, they just want to know the future. Okay.
Okay.
They don't want to, they just want to know the future. And the guides that work with me, they're like, no, no, no. People have to learn to live in the now. This is
Yeah.
it. This is now. This is all they've got. Tell them to stop thinking about the future. So they're just not even talking to people, not even answering them. Nope, we're not
Wow.
going to do this. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what's happening on my end.
So what is your specialty right now? What are you loving? What messages do you love sharing with folks right now?
Honey, you know what? What's most important to me now is to teach people how to live intuitively.
I love that.
Yes, so that they get the daily guidance they need.
Mm.
I love intuition so much, and I just want to keep teaching it and teaching it and teaching it. So that's what I'm doing now. Mhm.
That's good. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you're teaching others how to grow their own intuition.
Yes, yes,
Nice.
yeah, mhm. Yeah.
That's
That's what's
nice.
important to me.
Now, do you do that mostly through classes or
Yep.
private sessions? How do you do
Nope.
it?
Through Zoom, I do classes on Zoom, which is really fun.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
honey, you do.
Have you given up working with people one-on-one for the most part?
Yep. I have.
Interesting.
Yes, I have.
I've heard that this burnout comes. I keep hearing the story about someday it'll happen to you, Sheena. You'll get the burnout.
You haven't had it yet, honey?
I haven't had it yet. No, there's
Oh
some
my.
days where I white knuckle it through the day a little bit, but no, I haven't had it yet. And it seems like I take on a lot of very difficult clients that other psychics have let go and other therapists
Okay.
have let go.
Yeah.
I take a lot of
Okay.
the difficult. I feel like as a minister, that's
Yeah.
part of my ministry.
Oh yeah, honey.
To take on the very difficult ones, and they're difficult. They
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
ethereally punch you in the face and tell you what a terrible person you are when they're not getting their way. And I just
Yeah.
have to remember to breathe through it. I'll tell you a story. My mom taught emotionally disturbed kids, like I said, and her thing was the kids with the super high IQs
Yeah.
that were extremely violent and nobody could regulate them because their parents weren't smart enough to understand them. So my mother, who also had a very high IQ, specialized in them. And she told me these stories about this little boy. We were living in Chicago at the time, and how he was punching his parents and he was throwing chairs at them and he was setting fire to things, and
Oh,
and so I was terrified of this kid, right? So we go to get some food and ice cream, and she tells me, oh, by the way, the little boy that I've told you about, his parents own this ice cream place. And I was like, so then we get there and we get out of the car, and I hear this little voice yell her name and come bolting at her, hell bent for leather. And I'm, 8 years old and thinking that this child is going to kill my mother. He runs up to her, flies into her arms, wraps his arms and his legs around her, and just clings to her. And the parents are in tow, in tears, thanking her. Life is different. He's not like that anymore. He's not hurting the dog. They're not scared of him. That was the magic that was my mother. That was the gift that she brought to the world. If I can do like this much of that gift,
yes.
then I'm here honoring her and her gift in everything I do.
Got it.
Because that was just what we moved here. We had a pool for the first time. I was 13. And I'd be in the pool swimming with all my friends. And then suddenly I'd realize I was in the pool by myself. And I would look into the family room, and my mom would be sitting in her Barcalounger, and all my friends would be kneeling around her. It looked like the cover of a highlights magazine. And they'd all be asking her, should I break up with my boyfriend? Where should I go to school? What should I do about this class? How do I handle this teacher? And she was just spewing out advice. And at that time, we didn't talk about her being a psychic medium. She was just mom. And she didn't really talk about being a psychic with anybody but my dearest friends. She was always just mom. And you came to my house and mom gave you advice. So when somebody comes to me and I see their number on my text messages, and I think, oh God, I don't want to deal with this person for an hour. I remember how my mom took the really hard cases that nobody wanted. And she changed those kids' lives. And my friends that's parents kicked them out, they would live here. So I remember what she brings to the world, and I try to bring the same. And I pray in my heart of hearts the burnout doesn't happen, because I hope I can take these people for the rest of my life.
Okay,
we'll
so
see.
Tell me this, honey. Do you take breaks?
Do you mean, do I go days at a time and not read for people?
No, not a whole day, but I mean.
No, I decompress. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a pretty chill life. I live with a cat.
Okay.
My friends are all my best friends are all psychic, but none of them are practicing psychics. One's a mom, and one's a caterer, and one's a nurse, but they all have the gift. So they understand when I'm like, and so I have great friends I can talk to. And good. I try to do something fun. That'll do some crystal work, or burn some sage, or essential oils, whatever it is that I like in my spare time. So I do give myself a break. And I think that's so in everything you do, it's important to have some downtime and give yourself a break.
Good girl. Good girl. All right.
But
so if you find that happy medium, then you'll be a happy medium. Just
remember.
Yay!
I like that. That's awesome. Find that happy medium and be a happy medium. Yes. And honest to God, and I don't know how you feel about this, Echo, but I find the living people are so much worse and harder to deal with than the dead people.
Yes.
Because the dead people are in this beautiful ethereal energy state now, where they have this 360 perspective of how it all works.
Yeah.
And they're just chill as cucumbers.
Yep.
So the relatives come in and they're white knuckling it all over the place. Yeah. And then you tap into the person, and and they seem so, I think the deepest sadness for a spirit is not understanding why their earthbound loved ones can't be happy. Because they're in such a place of happiness.
Yeah.
And they just want them to be happy,
I know. Oh, honey, I know.
You told me a story once that I loved, that I'm going to finish the show out with today. But I always think about it. I tell so many people this story about how you knew somebody who needed to give birth, and it just kept not happening, right? The baby wasn't coming. And then you tapped in and you found out that the baby was actually waiting for her grandmother to pass, because she had promised she would be there for grandma when she passed. and she couldn't come
Yes.
and be reincarnated until that happened.
That's right.
Am I missing any good parts of that story?
No,
Because that story's
honey.
awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. Yeah. Nope. And now that baby that was born, she's now 20 years old and just got married. Yeah.
Wow.
So Sheena, that's how old that story is. Holy
Oh,
smokes, girl.
my
Yeah.
God, how old am I?
Yeah.
But that's, and she was a little Indian girl, right? From India?
Yes. Yes.
And she was
Yes.
waiting for grandma to pass so she could be born. Was it a
Yeah.
friend of yours or a client?
Yeah. A friend of
A
mine
friend. Uh-huh.
and client. And she was really overdue and we
Yeah.
couldn't. And she just said, what's going on? And I checked in and there was the baby's soul just saying that in her previous life, she was Indian, East Indian, and that her grandmother, she didn't live to be very old. I think she was like 6 or 7, maybe, when she passed.
Right.
And so now her grandmother was dying, and she knew she would be the first one that her grandma would come and look for. And so she said, as soon as my grandma comes, I'll talk with her and I'll explain to her I'm about to be reborn, and then I'll be born. And then it happened. And I don't even remember how many days later it was, honey. But yeah, I mean, whoever thinks of stuff like that when you're in labor.
But when you think about the logic and the balance of the universe, Echo, it makes perfect sense.
It does. It does, honey.
Because people say, like, why is God so erratic? Well, no. That's religion, and stories have taught you that about God. The universe is a perfect mirror to us. They mirror our responses.
Yep.
The universe is all about balance, and spirit is actually extremely logical.
Mm-hmm. That's
I love that story. And I love you. Thanks for doing this with me here today.
Are you kidding? I love you too.
Where can people find you online? You've got a new book that's exciting, right?
Yes, honey. It's called How to Live a Happily Ever After Life. And
I love that.
It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. My website is echobodine.com. I'm on Facebook at Echo Bodine, and then another page, Echo Lee Bodine. And I think that's it. I'm supposed to be on Twitter, but honey, I always forget about it. And I'm not good at Instagram. I don't even know what to do on Instagram. So, I'm just not very good at technology.
You'll get it, baby. You're doing great. You're doing great. Let's do this again soon. And I want to do some more radio with you on my iHeart Radio shows. Get your whole family on.
Yep.
The Bodine Family Radio Show. I would love that. Thank you for being here, sweetheart. What a joy. Thanks, Echo Bodine, everybody. Thank you to you. Thank you to KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. I'm at SheenaMetalSpiritual.com. That's where you find me for all of your psychic and spiritual needs and to learn more about me. And everywhere on social media, just at Sheena Metal. Till I see you next time, seek peace. Live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always work to raise your vibration, and most importantly, remember that you are love and you are loved. And I love you all. See you next Friday at 3:00 Pacific time. Thanks to KGRA. Thanks to Echo. I'm Sheena Metal. It's the Sheena Metal Experience right here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Have a good weekend.